He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
I don't want to be mean and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I have to tell the truth about this. If you have been convinced that you can find success peacefully and with joy, you've been lied to. There are those who have been granted a pathway to success by inheritance. Their family had a lot of money and not a lot of notoriety, and suddenly that has been bestowed upon them, almost like a royal family. But even in those circumstances, success, it rests on the other side of a lot of suffering and a lot of sacrifice. That's what I want to talk about today on Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and happy Veterans Day. Success lies on the other side of a lot of suffering and sacrifice. Maybe it's not your suffering and sacrifice, but success is always on the other side of suffering and sacrifice. And I can tell you, if you want to feel like and know and be confident that you have earned the success that you're enjoying, you will only do that after much suffering and sacrifice. Now, I also want you to know that the type of suffering and the type of sacrifice that people experience is going to be different based on not only the level of success, but specifically the field of success. What is it that you are successful at? Have you accomplished an academic achievement, a PhD, a master's degree, some advanced degree, some great accomplishment like a Nobel Peace Prize? That's going to require a lot of sacrifice and a lot of suffering. Have you achieved notoriety? Well, there are a lot of people who rose to notoriety, especially in the wave of social media that created a TikTok page or a YouTube page or a Facebook page and suddenly became Insta-famous, Instagram famous. They've got a few likes and clicks or a few million likes and clicks and the dollars followed, and now everywhere they go, everybody knows them. But don't be fooled for a second. Even that kind of success comes with suffering and sacrifice. Oh, it doesn't look the same. It doesn't look the same as my mom, who spent decades on her knees scrubbing urinals in the little boys' bathrooms before she went back to college and graduated the same month she turned 50. Though there was a lot of suffering and a lot of sacrifice, a lot of 24-hour work shifts when she was a home health assistant like a nurse. There are a lot of long, hard hours as a single mom long before that teaching certificate arrived, long before walking out of the classroom with hundreds of students saying, I wouldn't have made it at all if it weren't for her. I would have given up on myself a long time ago, but she refused to give up on me. There was a lot of suffering and sacrifice along the way to get to that point. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen on its own. For the CEO who launched their company, again, starting off with nothing, Paul Martinelli was a janitor and began to hire other janitors. He got a mentor who said, there was a better way of doing this, and made a lot of money running his small business, but didn't realize that somebody was embezzling. Listen to his story. Paul Martinelli will tell you what it was like to be a guy who stuttered and who struggled with his own communication skills and his own self-confidence. But now he's a multimillionaire running a global company. These are not people who walked in one day and went, I think I'll be successful. I think I'll be rich. It wasn't a choice made like that. No, there was a lot of suffering and a lot of sacrifice. And if you think that those people who have made it to the social media stardom will never face the suffering and sacrifice, I'm afraid you're a little delusional even there, because the truth of the matter is they are going to pay a price. They may pay a price of privacy. They may think life is going to be so easy. I've got all this money coming in now. Everybody knows my name everywhere I go. I'm famous. But really, no, there's a different level of suffering, a different level of sacrifice that goes along with everywhere you go, someone knows your name. I remember a couple of decades ago that one of the famous, now aged and famous Hollywood stars, musician, said, I never set out to be anyone's role model. I just wanted to enjoy my career. But all of a sudden, the decisions that were being made, the lifestyle that was being lived, the relationships that were being exploited, they all came to light at one time, and everybody in the world went, do you see how your behavior is impacting an entire generation of young women? And she said, I didn't set out to be a role model. It wasn't my intention. Well, it doesn't really matter if it's your intention or not. The truth is, when people are paying attention to everything that you do, you're a role model. And when people are paying attention to everything that you do, the chances that something you didn't expect to be exposed is going to get exposed. There's a lot of pressure that goes along with that. There's a lot of pressure that goes along with presenting yourself as an influencer that's going to make a difference in other people's lives. Whether your true intent is to make a difference in their lives or just to put a whole lot of money in your account, you're going to get noticed. And the minute you get noticed, the pressure comes. What does that pressure look like? Well, that pressure looks like everybody's watching everything that you do, and every tiny little mistake gets magnified. It happens in the world of politics. It happens in the world of celebrity stardom. Look at somebody like a Joe Rogan or an Elon Musk. All the money in the world can't stop them from being made fun of, from being mocked and ridiculed. But the long, hard hours that it took for them to get the success they have, those were on the other side of suffering and sacrifice. Now, maybe you're young and you haven't launched a business or sought your advanced careers or sought your advanced education yet. Maybe you haven't built a multi-million-dollar company or a multinational company. Maybe you haven't had to make sacrifices of eating ramen noodles or macaroni and cheese until you reach the place where you can afford the kind of lifestyle that you're seeking. Maybe you haven't had that experience yet. If you haven't, let me help you understand something else. There are people who have gone before you, who have charged down the guns of the enemy. And I mean that not just metaphorically, but literally. There are people who stormed the beaches of Normandy, people who fought in the jungles of Vietnam, who fought in the sands of Desert Storm in Iraq and Afghanistan and Kuwait. There are those who fought in Panama, and those who fought along the Guadalcanal and in Japan and in Pearl Harbor. There are those who literally put their lives on the line. Some came home in a bag, and some were never even found. Some came home and fought to restore a life worth living, to find a place where all the PTSD and all the trauma of watching their best friend fly apart in pieces at the hand of a grenade or a landmine, they're trying to put their world back together. All those pieces are still fragments of their daily thoughts. And they didn't do that because it would make them insta-famous. They didn't do that because they thought, well, there are a whole lot of riches that come along with having a Purple Heart. No. In fact, every Purple Heart recipient that I've known, that I've met, that I've interviewed, that I've had conversations with will tell you, I would do it again because it was the right thing to do at the time. It was a moral decision. But together with my Purple Heart and maybe $5, I could get a cup of coffee somewhere. The Purple Heart has no financial reward or significance behind it. It's a recognition of a sacrifice made, suffering and sacrifice, because success is always on the other side of that. Here's the reality for a lot of veterans that you're going to encounter today, though. a lot of their suffering and sacrifice was for your success, not their own. For the success of, in many cases, an ungrateful nation. In some cases, for the success of a grateful nation. But if you see a veteran today, and you're asking yourself, how am I going to pay for my college tuition? How will I pay next month's rent? How will I even survive through this cold winter with gas prices and inflation the way they are? Stop for a moment and ask yourself, how did they survive literal bullets flying past their head? How did they survive charging into the realm of fire, walking past the IEDs, hoping not to lose a limb along the way, but sometimes losing friends along the way? How did they pay the suffering and sacrifice necessary for the success that you seek? And let me frame that one more time. The fact that you live in a nation where you're not yet persecuted, arrested, detained, thrown away for having an idea that others disagree with. Oh, you might have the social separation of having an opinion that others don't find likable. But you haven't yet been arrested, detained, or set on fire, stoned to death, had your head removed. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that for 200 plus years, 247 for the Marines this week, 247 years, they have fought, they have suffered, and they have sacrificed for your success. To live in a place where you can get up and have an opinion and it doesn't cost you your life, where you can choose to go to work and earn a paycheck and build up savings and buy real estate or properties or investments and not have them taken from you. Those sacrifices, that suffering, that was on behalf of your success. Those men and women who charged into the enemy's territory to make sure the enemy stayed in their territory and not in ours, they're fighting for your success. They're fighting for your future. Now, here's my challenging question for you. If you know that there are veterans who are willing to stare down the enemy's guns, charge past the flaming bullets, walk past the IEDs, walk into harm's way and lose their friends for your success, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? I've always been fascinated by those who are willing to burn the American flag. The flag that stands for the freedom that gives you the right to make the choice whether or not you burn the flag or not. Just seems, sacrosanct, idiotic, ironic, for the symbol that says we are the freest people in the world, we have the greatest opportunity in the world because of the sacrifice and suffering of millions of others who paid a price that we didn't have to pay. We didn't have to pay it because they did. And yet, we're going to burn the symbol that represents their effort. That never made any sense to me. But I want you to ask yourself today, on Veterans Day in the United States, what have I done to demonstrate that I'm grateful for the sacrifice and suffering of millions of people who have fought to keep this land free and independent? What have I done to demonstrate that I deserve the success that they bought for me? What have I done to demonstrate my gratitude by using that success to preserve that same heritage of freedom and independence? So many rights that we have today rest on the suffering and sacrifice of our American veterans and others who have led as first responders or as political leaders. I want you to seriously reflect today as you think about your level of success, either what you've already achieved or what you're on the path to achieve, and ask yourself, have I earned the right to say someone else fought and died for me? Have I given everything that I have to see to it that their suffering and sacrifice paid off? And if I haven't, then let's not take that success for granted. Let's not take that success so lightly as to mock and ridicule it, or to mock and ridicule the people who fought to achieve it. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, a U.S. Air Force veteran. Thank you. Thank you to all the men and women who served. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your suffering. Thank you for your sacrifice. I bless your success. Have a blessed day.